going to start with the NBA Finals as the Lakers win their 17th title. Shane, your reaction to the Lakers win?
You know, it seems like the ending of a fairy tale more than anything.
Yes,
you know, just based off of everything that's happened this year, obviously with Kobe passing away, kind of like which kind of seems to be like the bad event that kicked off 2020's year of just.
I would say so. Yeah.
Of terrible
horror.
Things.
No, of horror.
Yeah.
This is a horror year, if anything else.
And then, it just seems kind of fitting that they came around and won it all in the end. And but I mean, it just goes to show, I think, how how dangerous LeBron James can still be in a in a good roster with guys like AD, and then of course Dwight Howard stepping up, Rondo, whatever else, and all the new guys as well. While they weren't always there, performing their best all the time, I think in the end, they all showed up when it counted, and then now they have a ring. So
yeah. I will say this, regardless if you like the Lakers or not, and all you Lakers fans on Twitter, what have you been doing the last few days? Kyle Kuzma shouldn't get a ring and all this stuff. It's been crazy. Lakers fans have overreacted to a lot throughout this playoffs. That's for sure, but I can understand that. But yeah, it really seems like a fitting end to a season with the bubble and all that, which we'll get to. So here's an amazing stat that I think we just saw from StatMuse on Twitter. So Kobe in the 2009 playoffs, and then LeBron in this year's playoffs. Kobe beat the Rockets in the second round. LeBron beat the Rockets in the second round. Kobe beat the Nuggets in the conference finals. LeBron also beat the Nuggets in the conference finals. And they both won their fourth ring in the same city in Orlando, Florida. Of course, Kobe in that year won MVP. LeBron also won the MVP this year. The finals MVP, but also it is interesting because Kobe did go up against Dwight Howard in that series, and now Dwight also has a ring after everything that he's been through over the last few years. Him kind of finally fitting into a role there in LA finally, and getting himself a ring, saying kind of never give up on yourself kind of thing. So it's somehow poetic, Shane, don't you think, that this is how it ended?
Yeah, I'd say. I mean, just seeing how so much came full circle, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's still kind of crazy.
Yeah. And let's before we move on to the actual bubble and all those aspects, the Heat, an incredible year. I feel like not only is Jimmy Butler finally getting his due as not a dysfunctional player, but an actual player that can help a team win a championship. And then you look at Miami, there's got to be some players out there, some top quality players, maybe Giannis, maybe who knows, who got to look at Miami and go, this is a premier destination for a title contender for the next, I would say, 3 to 4 years. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I'd say they're one piece away from, being a legit title contender. Not that they weren't this year, obviously, but yeah, whether it's a Giannis or
who knows who else?
Who else would be in free agency? But yeah, I mean, I think we were kind of expecting them to. I think at the beginning of the year we were saying they would maybe be like a 7 or 8 seed, but and then
we didn't know how Jimmy Butler would fit with this group, right? We didn't know, and it felt like just Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo had his breakout year. And I think that was a huge thing as well. And then to see young guys like Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, Kendrick Nunn even was pretty good in some of these finals games. Just these really, really young players step up and kind of create an identity, especially around Eric Spoelstra, who really works with these kind of teams.
Yeah. But, it all worked out because they got to the finals. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Much more than anyone expected, but now the expectations are raised whenever we start next year.
Yeah, of course.
In terms of the bubble, the NBA, I mean the NHL, we already talked about their bubble, and it was definitely really successful, even though it was somehow a little bit more weird when it comes to hockey. But your perspective on how the NBA bubble and everyone involved to make this bubble happen, your perspective on how it ended up.
Yeah, I think it was the best scenario of a bad situation. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because you look at like the NFL or MLB, and they, at least in the season, haven't had bubbles. And so there's been this risk of virus outbreaks, like from the Marlins or from the Titans, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And it just shows that a bubble, while it's a bit of a pain logistically, and it's tough on players having to be.
Paul George is a perfect example. They
Right.
didn't let the families come in until the semis, so it was about a month and a half before the families could come in. And even guys like LeBron said, there's nothing for them to do here, so why would I bring them along? All these kind of things.
Yeah. So, stuff like that. I mean, it's obviously a lot safer to do that because you don't have any outbreaks, but
it showed itself with these two. I mean, the MLS had their own separate outbreaks, but at least with the NHL and the NBA, it felt like it went really smoothly.
Yeah. So, it's good for that reason, but, when it comes to players' mental health and well-being, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like it's gonna affect them forever, but, during the time, it's like, that was probably hard, undoubtedly,
Think about the uniqueness of this season. We remember at the beginning of the year, we were very excited for it. We felt there was so much parity involved. And, of course, Kobe dying, David Stern. This is a hard year on NBA fans all over. So that kind of
strange one, to say the least.
Yeah, and so go back to that, and then March 12th with Rudy Gobert, and of course Donovan Mitchell, and obviously there were other positive cases like Russell Westbrook. So some definitely big name stars, but
KD.
Yeah, KD as well. It's there's something so, I don't know. Again, I think poetic's the perfect word, because I really felt poetic in the worst way, but also the best way, in like the sense that the bubble, for these players, and I recommend everyone to go watch ESPN with Matisse Thybulle did a really great 3-minute feature of the brotherhood of the bubble, and he explains what we all kind of learned from that, being in that experience for as long as he was, which was about a month or two. But there's something amazing for these teams like Miami and like LA and pretty much everyone, even Phoenix, who got on that huge run and didn't make the playoffs, unfortunately, but won all 7 games before the playoffs. The camaraderie between these teams, the bonds between these teams was amazing, because this is one of the first years where you really look at teammate chemistry and go, oh yeah, because they're around each other all the time. And there's just something so cool, because it ends up being like a brotherhood for a lot of these guys, more so than it would be in the regular season.
Right. That is the one good thing about it, for sure. Because if you're close as a team, that works in your favor, obviously. But then if you're like a Philadelphia, and there's tension,
then
it's bad. But
I mean, and even for the players, I know Kemba Walker was talking about this to Taylor Brooks, Taylor Brooks earlier in the bubble, right at the beginning of how about for a guy like LeBron James, right? When he goes out, right, and goes to dinner with a hot shot or whatever, deciding HBO shows or whatever he might be doing, you get noticed. I mean, you do. You get noticed in LA, and people know who you are, and then you come into the bubble, and guess what? Guys like Kemba Walker, guys like Jason Tatum, guys like Damian Lillard, Devin Booker, hey, they see you when they play you, and they don't think of you as this they do think of you as that larger than life player, of course, with LeBron, but it's not like in his face all the time. Like, it's just easier for
Right.
these players because they know what they're doing. Like, they see each other all the time. So I thought that was interesting from an individual perspective, with what Kemba said there at the beginning of the bubble.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to think of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I think my overall thoughts is, I don't know when next season's gonna start. The reality is I don't care because
At least we got through this season.
I don't care, and here's why I don't care. I don't care because, like, I want the schedule to somehow get back to normal. You know, I don't want to have this be the norm. It seems like a little bit much to have the NBA Finals in October. But, you know, hopefully we can get back to the season actually starting in late October or early November. But I'm good because I don't think I've ever seen a basketball season in maybe over a decade that I've had more fun with, but also more emotion with.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think the main thing is that it's poetic in a bad way, but also poetic in a really beautiful way, ultimately.
Yeah. And it's like like I said, it's like the ending to a movie.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know, it's weird. But, you know, things happen like that in life sometimes, and this is one of those times.
Yeah, for sure.